Broadcasting from Orchard Park, New York,
and Boca Raton, Florida,
it's the Freight 360 podcast. From freight broker sales tips to sports talk, this podcast is all about helping you grow as a freight broker. We're your hosts, Nate Cross
and Benjamin Kowalski.
Let's talk freight. All right, welcome back for another episode of the Freight 360 podcast. I'm excited for today's episode. We're going to get into all the fun stuff in just a second here. It's episode 235. So if you're brand new here, make sure to check out all of our other content. There's 234 other episodes. Hit the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are. Feel free to ask questions in there too. That will answer as many of those questions as we can on our weekly Final Mile podcast that comes out on Tuesdays. And share us with all your friends in the industry. And make sure to check out all of our other content at freight360.net, including the Freight Broker Basics course, to have all the information you need to start and launch a successful freight brokerage. All right, so before we get into today's main topic, I wanted to introduce our guests. We've got two of them today. It's Mike Fulham and Ed Mangino. They are the founders of a company called QuickScope. We'll get into QuickScope in a little bit here, but Mike and then Ed, feel free. And for those who don't know you, I know you guys are starting to get out there on LinkedIn with your new product, but feel free, give us a little rundown on who you are and how you got in the industry.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. We're excited to be here. So I've been in the industry for about 17 years now. I started with C.H. Robinson, was there for a little over 10 years. Kind of the normal trajectory of a C.H. Robinson salesperson. You start in operations, then get into carrier sales, you get a feel for everything, then some account management. So I did that kind of rotation the first 5 years. And then after that was really when I got into what I really enjoyed, which was developing end-to-end solutions for large customers, leveraging different modes, different types of authority to get the job done. Learned a ton, really enjoyed it. Left there after 10 years to join Reed TMS, which is now Werner. I was with them for 3 years, pretty much managing the brokerage, doing everything, from marketing to business analytics to managing the agents and the branches. Had a great time, but decided to start this business with a few partners, and we're excited to talk about QuickScope today.
Awesome. Ed, how about you?
Yeah, similar to Mike, we met at Robinson 17 years ago. So I've been in the business for 17 years. Started out booking trucks, slinging freight. Had no idea what I was doing for the first 6 months, like answering the phone and trying to figure out what was happening, right? But I wound up in account management for a while and then moved into sales and implementation. Really, really liked implementation, helping the idea that we pitch get to execution. And that was a lot of fun. But I had an opportunity to move down to Florida with C.H. Robinson and took advantage of it. So I moved down to Tampa about 6 years ago and ran the floral consolidation program. So fresh cut floral consolidation warehouse at MIA down in Miami, and then distributed throughout the entire country. Left that role and joined Mike and the team and decided to dive into QuickScope, something completely different but industry related. And it's been a lot of fun.
I love it. I always love when someone who's got the amount of experience and knowledge that you guys have applies that to a solution for the industry. I've seen a lot of, like, Ben, you and I talk about it, all the new stuff that comes out, and some of it's okay, some of it's not very good, and some of it every now and then there's a really good product. But a lot of the junk out there tends to be someone that was in it for 6 months, didn't do very well, and was like, yeah, I'm going to go build something or sell some software. But I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. So
super hard to get customers. Let's go develop software. And they didn't do the job long enough to know what is needed and what isn't needed or how you do things. And you end up with a bunch of interfaces that don't function, right? Like, yep. I'd say 9 out of 10 out there. So
for sure. Ben, how's Florida?
Doing well. Weather's getting a little bit nicer, getting a little bit warmer.
Keep it warm. I'll be down there in less than 2 weeks, man. Can't wait.
It's up in the 80s again. So we're back up into normal spring weather.
Awesome. Well, good stuff. We'll get through a little sports here. This is we're recording on a Wednesday, so it's officially free agency. I know as of Monday, agents could start talking to one another, but I think the deals are all starting to have ink to paper today. So All right. So producer Steven threw a little note in here. Kirk Cousins, epic deal, and his agent's ability to secure ridiculous guaranteed money. So what did he get? Was it $100 million contract, $50 million guaranteed or something like that? Does that sound right? Yeah.
Speaking of guaranteed money, Steelers picked up Russell Wilson. With Denver picking up the tab.
Yeah.
What's Mike, what are the Eagles doing as a Philly guy?
A lot. It's been it's been fun. I mean, they still got a lot of work to do on defense. They did pick up an edge rusher from the Jets, Bryce Huff. Apparently he's really good, like really fast off the ball, young. I'm not sure what that means, though. They might still trade Josh Sweat or Hassan Reddick or both. So I don't know if that's a net zero or a plus long term. But they picked up Saquon. I'm pumped about that. I mean, getting to see him play behind our line, even if it's not a good addition for the Eagles, I'm not saying it is or it isn't with all the holes they got to fill. Just watching him play behind that O-line, it's gonna be awesome.
So I'll hit on the Bills here. I made sure to wear a little Bills attire today, as I pretty much do every day anyway. But the Bills' biggest struggle going into this year's this year's free agent season and heading into the draft is cap space. So I think we were over like between 15 and 20 million. So Josh Allen was able to restructure his contract to free up cap space. Dawson Knox did the same thing. They released Jordan Poyer, who I think just signed with Miami, which I hate to see that one. He's such a good safety. But they were able to sign Deion Dawkins, the Snowman. I know that was a big one that folks were worried about, but I don't know. I think the Bills are going to have a very different team going into 2024 than what we've seen the last, I don't want to call them the failed dynasty, but like the crew that they've been that hasn't been able to go deep in the playoffs besides the AFC Championship that they lost a few years ago. I think you're going to see a different dynamic this year, and I don't know. I'm curious to see how it all pans out, how the draft is. I've heard rumors about crazy trades to get some first round draft position, but I don't know. I think I'm fully recovered from the previous season. And Mike, I don't know how you feel because you're an Eagles fan and it was a rough one for both of our teams, but we'll see.
Recovery is probably a strong word, but I'm ready. I'm ready. Moving on from Kelsey and Cox kind of, it was a little tough, but
yeah, Kelsey just officially retired. Was it last week?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we
Kelsey's done.
Saw it was coming, but
yeah. And Fletcher Cox is done. So, I mean, it's time probably for both of them. We're going to have to move on eventually, but replacing them as leaders, I think we're going to look way different too. Not just, you have the same core on both teams. You're still a good team, but, not having those leaders, it's going to be different.
Yeah. Ben, any idea on what Russell Wilson's deal is? Like what his contract was?
1.3 million earlier this week is what it was reported. Basically the league minimum.
Really? Yeah. Didn't
Denver's picking up the whole tab. It's like 50 or 80 million bucks, I think, was the guarantee. I think 50 after. It was like 80 guaranteed. God. They're still paying. It was a significant amount of money. And that's all they've been talking about in Pittsburgh radio all week is just half of the city's like, well, if you listen to Denver, this is a horrible deal. And the other half of the city's like, but it costs nothing. And if you bring somebody in and he might be a leader and be able to help Kenny Pickett learn, possibly get some competition. So I don't know. At the very least, it'll shake things up. Who knows if it'll be good or bad.
Yeah, because Kenny Pickett's going into his third year now, isn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
I mean, that might be the end of Kenny Pickett, though. I mean, if you're bringing
it very well might be.
Yeah. But they went out and spent money on Patrick Queen. I mean, that's a huge addition.
Yeah, I do think
they gave him 41 mil.
Yeah, and I think he might stick around. At least they were talking about this week that he may stick around as third string more than likely because there's not a whole lot of demand for him out there is the sentiment. But I guess see how the rest of the free agency plays out.
Yeah.
Wild. Ed, are you a sports guy at all?
Yeah, I'm a Birds fan as well, but I'm more focused on the Phillies right now, being down here in next to Clearwater.
Is that where their spring training is?
Okay. Yeah, I'm about 6 miles from the stadium, so I'm going to my third game on Sunday. It's the St. Patty's
that's awesome.
Game, which is always always a crazy game. They set record.
Yeah, we're like
per year.
2 weeks out from opening weekend. I can't wait. I'm a huge Red Sox fan, so at least I mean, I don't know. It's been a rough year. It's been rough to be a fan of any of the teams that I like the last couple of years, apparently. But I don't even want to talk about the Sabres. We'll skip that.
Yeah.
But, well, that's cool. I always wanted to get to a spring training game. My parents live down in Florida, but I've never made it down during the spring training time. I'm always there just afterwards. So that's cool. Ben, we got anything else? Anything in golf or anything like that?
Not really. Bay Hill was last week. I looked it up. I don't even remember the guy's name who actually won.
I caught a little bit of whatever was on this past weekend, but not a lot.
Taylor Montgomery won. Bay Hill.
Fair enough. Quick news. If you guys don't subscribe to the newsletter, go to our website, freight360.net. There's a quick sign up thing. We get 2 out a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. One of the, nothing too crazy, but there was the government legislation package for $460 billion. And of that, and I do want to talk about it for a minute here, is that $1 billion has been allocated to the FMCSA for grants and operational services, and I'm quoting this, alongside substantial funds for other key agencies, including the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Aviation Administration, and Federal Transit Administration. So for anybody that has ever attended the TIA's policy forum in DC in the fall, the FMCSA had a couple of representatives from their, or a couple of folks on their staff have what we thought was going to be a Q&A session, but it was pretty staged ahead of time with pre-picked questions from people. But they talked about their plans to try and combat fraud and, implement these new systems and whatnot. And a lot of the complaints, it seemed like, or I guess excuses over the years, has been funding, manpower, et cetera. So they're getting $1 billion. Let's see what they can waste it on, because I don't really have a whole lot of faith that they're going to do anything substantially beneficial for us in our industry. What do you guys, any take on that?
I was reading something the other day. I forget which grant they were talking about. It was some other big development. And again, it was approved like 5 years ago. And then the example, I really wish I could remember what it was. And they were like, yeah, I don't think literally any money of it has been spent yet. So, I mean, I'm glad they're approving funds for it, but I mean, I think the practical likelihood that they're going to spend it or get anything done anytime soon is pretty unlikely.
Yeah, there was a lot of money allocated towards electric vehicle charging too, trying to have the whole goal for zero emission transit with trucks. I think we're a very long way from that, but who knows? We'll see.
Tired of struggling to find accurate rates and the right carriers for your freight? With DAT1, you can access more than 500 million posted loads and trucks every year. That's 3 times more capacity than any other load board. Plus, their integrated freight management system makes it easy to cover loads 24/7. They have the most trusted network of carriers, brokers, and shippers in the country. You'll get real-time rates on every lane, so you know exactly how much a shipment will cost before you commit to it. Plus, you get instant access to top bids from qualified carriers around the country. Get 10% off your first year of DAT1 when you visit the link in the show notes.
We'll see. Well, good stuff. Let's get into QuickScope. So, Mike, I'll let you kind of kick it off. I've talked with you about this a bit. I've seen it. It's an awesome product. We haven't really talked about anything what it does so far, other than you guys have mentioned that you guys had the idea to do this and really have poured a lot of energy and effort into it. But give us a little bit of a rundown on what QuickScope is, where you're at in the process of it, and then we'll definitely peel back the layers on different things going on in the industry and what QuickScope is doing that's really a first of its kind, unique to help protect freight brokers and their customers.
Yeah, sure. So QuickScope is a fraud protection tool designed to protect the carrier and the broker amidst the chain of custody from things like cargo theft, fraud, which, there's probably 3 or 4 different buckets of double brokerage now. There's the identity theft, the phishing scams. There's all types of things that threaten the carrier and threaten the broker. Either the broker, you know, hurts the relationship with their customer because they've become a victim of fraud and either lost the product or, don't know where the truck is, or the actual carrier doesn't get paid because the wrong carrier was paid, the fraudulent actor was paid, or the broker has to pay both, or the shipper has to pay both. So you're paying for the order twice to make sure that the right carrier got paid. And this problem has always existed. I mean, like Ed and I said, we've been in the industry for quite a while now. And double brokerage and cargo theft has always existed. But probably since more of these public load boards became available and the more digitized the industry became, you started to see more and more of it. And then I'd say over the past 4 or 5 years, it's gotten crazy. I mean, it's insane how often it's happening. And you could post a load tomorrow, and if you're the one posting the load, you're going to get a ton of fraudulent calls, more fraudulent calls than you'll get legit. And then alternatively, if you're a carrier looking for a spot load, there's plenty of bad actors impersonating quality brokers. I mean, we saw it happen with PLCI, which is Pepsi, and it happens to brokers every day where they're being impersonated. So, our primary business is working with 3PLs, shippers, and carriers, doing different forms of consulting. And we're made aware of this issue constantly. And it got to the point where we said, you know what, there might be an avenue to do something here at the load level. There's a lot of things that are being done, whether it's carrier vetting and qualification, different types of tracking tools, etc., that can help mitigate the risk. But we really needed something at the load level that could be deployed transactionally, similar to, a macro point or a trucker tools that's providing tracking at the load level. But instead, this would protect the broker and the carrier from fraud. So we started to conceptualize the idea and eventually put it together. So what QuickScope does is it can be deployed by the broker at the load level. A message will be sent to the driver. It will require no application download. There's no app. This is all web-based. We felt like there was a little bit of app fatigue in the market, so we decided to go around that. The driver receives a text message. They're going to go to their shipper. On the way to the shipper, when they hit a 2-mile geofence, they're going to have access to that link that was provided in the text message. That link is going to bring them to a verification portal. In that portal, it's going to upload their location for that one point in time. Again, it's not a tracking tool. It's just tracking where they're at that moment in time. And it's going to request them to take a picture of the side of their truck. And that's going to capture your basic information, right? DOT number, MC number, potentially the tractor number, tractor trailer number, the name of the company, etc. That's sent back to the QuickScope platform almost immediately. And it's cross-referenced against the information that was provided from the broker. So if the MC matches, if the phone number matches, if the DOT number matches, etc., they clear a verification. And at that point, we will release the pickup numbers or any relevant pickup information to that driver. If they don't pass the verification, they won't get access to the pickup numbers, and we'll notify the broker. So in a positive interaction, they'll receive the text message on their way to the shipper. They'll clear. It takes like literally 10, 20 seconds max. They'll get the pickup numbers. It'll populate in their phone, all itemized at the shipper. And then they'll go to the shipper to pick up. In when you catch fraud, which we've had happen as recent as this week, you'll notice that the pictures you can get when they're fraudulent actors are pretty bad at times. Sometimes it's not just the wrong MC or the wrong DOT. Sometimes it's a washing machine. But they won't get the pickup number. The broker will be immediately notified. This can all happen up to 12 hours in advance of pickup, so you'll have time to find another truck. And then we'll notify that there's a fraudulent actor. The broker can do what they want with that information. But let's say that they do pass pickup verification. After they get loaded, and this concept will progress through multiple picks, let's say they get through all their picks, they can upload their BOLs by literally taking a picture of them in the same portal. Same portal they took as the side of the truck, they could take a picture of the BOLs, and the broker will receive them immediately. Throughout transit, you can perform a verified update. So pharmaceuticals, electronics, maybe you're worried that it's been double brokered after the load has been picked up, which often happens. You can push request update, and they'll ask for a verified update. Same process, same phone, has to use the secure portal, take a picture of the side of the truck, cross-reference the information, and clear it. Same concept can be repeated at delivery by withholding the delivery number and making sure that you're paying the right carrier before it's delivered.
Can you walk back a second, right? So can you walk through an example of how a load's been double brokered after pickup? That plays out?
Well, so my thought there was they could grab it, go to a warehouse, and just rebroker it, after they've driven 5 miles, right? Or is there another use case there?
There's actually a surprising amount of use cases, and I don't know, I'm ashamed to say it. Some of them I wasn't even aware of. As a company that we're trying to attack this, there's some issues that we weren't even aware of. And one came up yesterday with one of our customers. They said, we really want to perform a verification after pickup, but on the first leg of the trip. I said, of course. They said, what was happening last year was all of our loads were being taken and brokered to an intermodal carrier. And they were consolidating multiple loads onto, and they weren't knowing.
That's pretty common.
So that's one. But another case is, exchanging it at his warehouse or taking it back to their local facility in, let's say, LA, and then just brokering it and have the carrier pick it up with power or cross-dock it. So there's definitely application. I think it's more specific to, high-value goods or controlled substances that you really want to make sure that that specific driver is still with that truck. But on the delivery side, if it were to somehow pass a verification or did exchange hands after the fact, or maybe it was cross-docked mid-transit prior to delivery, if you perform that verification and you recognize that it's not the carrier you hired, well, you still want that carrier to deliver the product, right? So you give them the delivery number, you make sure they deliver, you've confirmed their location at minimum, and then you pay the right carrier, and you just don't double pay the wrong carrier. So there's some application just on the basic avoidance of the damages caused by fraud.
The other thing, too, at the very beginning that struck me when you were saying this, and it's not related to fraud, but it's something Nate and I talked about a lot, as a matter of practice that we used to do at TQL, is just withholding pickup number, right, until your location is literally set at pickup. And the thing we always ran into in practice was even the carriers that wanted to, they wouldn't typically, accept your macro point or whatever your tracking was until they were done with their last load. And our issue would be just be honest, we just didn't really know where they were. And they're like, yeah, I'm on my way. And everybody that's brokered freight has heard this, right? And you're telling your customer and you're giving them the pickup number. Now you're stuck with that carrier. Meanwhile, they're still at their receiver, right? And I was like, that is a great way to standardize even just knowing where they're at before they're even able to pick it up, so that you've got a really good idea when they're telling you, hey, I'm 5 minutes out, and you hear that for the next 45 minutes, right? Again, it's a lot easier to make them accept it once they're loaded. It's a lot harder in the transit to the pickup. That I think that also really helps, just make our lives easier.
Yeah, I think as well as obviously, I think back to 10 years ago when double brokering existed, but not in its capacity. A common practice that we would use is I just won't give the full pickup address until I have confirmed the driver is en route, or whatever the case might be. And now, as it's gotten so prevalent, we've gone to the practice of withholding that pickup number. But you'll have carriers that'll tell you I'm not signing a rate confirmation until I have the pickup details in full. But if you give them a contingent, hey, here's your text, it will release it to you as soon as you're within that geofence and your picture is authenticated. But to be clear, they're not waiting on a human being to look at the picture, right? Isn't it? Is there a computer recognition in there, or what?
Yeah, it takes less than 10 seconds.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, there's some intelligence in the system that cross-references the information. And if it's not enough of quality picture, it'll ask for another one.
Okay.
But the that's a good point. Like we're not technology people, we're not tech bros. We're logistics people first. So for us to develop a software, we really had the mindset of creating it in a way where it was built around operations we currently understand, which are broker and carrier operations. So we wanted, one, to make this super carrier friendly. We wanted them to want to use it and not to fight against it. And we also wanted to make it very simple for a broker to implement. Myself, Alex, Ed, our whole team was basically at the front end of MacroPoint integrations. Then came along Trucker Tools, then came along FourKites, and we've implemented that across huge teams at 2 different companies. And I can't say that either of them were exciting or fun. They were really difficult to implement those things. Worth it, but difficult to implement. And one of the things that we found in doing this is that the consistent and new applications have kind of trained the carrier base that this isn't going away. There's always going to be a new tool to use. We definitely wanted to stay away from it being an application, but we were very confident that the carriers would absorb it. What we weren't so sure about is if the broker was sending a rate confirmation without the pickup number, could they get action from that carrier? Because back in the day, you wouldn't get any action. It would be a fake load. The carriers are smart enough to know that game. But this problem has gotten so significant and it's affected the carriers so much. We get carriers reaching out constantly to us. How do I get it on my fleet? How do I get it on my fleet? They want to use it. They love the idea that their carrier or their driver is the only one to get the pickup information. And some of our customers, you can make this work however your operations work, but most of them are just supplementing the word QuickScope order in the pickup information column so that the drivers understand that they should be expecting this from QuickScope.
The question. So you have the same product, or is it a different, like if I'm an asset company, to your point, I'm like, even in the past month, 3 stolen loads to 3 clients we work with in the past 2 weeks and 2 carriers in the past month, similar scenario, right? And there's a huge use case for both. Is it the same product? Like if I'm a carrier, right, and Nate's my broker, I just give him a lot. Like how does he use it if I want him to use it, I guess, if I'm an asset company?
Yeah, so there's still some discussions on how we're going to make this interface from the carrier being the power user. Right now, we've built it entirely around the broker being the power user, mostly because the broker controls the money on both ends. They control the money to the carrier. They control the money to the shipper. They can push and pull the cost of this product in any way. Some of the brokers are actually marking this up and selling it to their customers that, hey, if you want to increase security, it's X amount of dollars per load. What we recommend the carriers do right now is you can't get into our system as a broker without being verified by us. And it's pretty stringent. We're asking for W-9s, COIs, emails. We're calling to confirm the email. We're having conversations with people. You can't just create a login. You can't have multiple logins. There's a lot of security to get the broker in. So if you're a carrier that wants to use the load board this produce season, and you see Scotland posting loads, you see X posting loads, Y posting loads, and you're going to be active there, call us, tell them, whoever your broker is, to onboard us, and then deploy all of your specific loads through QuickScope. And they can push and pull the cost of QuickScope in either direction. Long term, I think we do want to make this where the carrier could be the power user.
A lot bigger market.
In freight, time is money and efficiency is key. That's where Levity comes in. Imagine automating your email operations to do more with less effort. Levity connects directly to your inboxes, extracting vital information from emails and attachments in real time. It seamlessly integrates with your TMS, empowering you to quote faster, build loads more efficiently, and book more freight in less time. Whether it's incoming emails from shippers or carriers, Levity's got you covered. It understands any language, any format, and even interprets non-standard formatting. Visit levity.ai today to sign up and get started. I was saying, but I think it makes sense because based on your background, like you and Ed, and what your experience is in, the main thing was, let's start with solving a problem that we've identified ourselves. But I think quickly as you go down that path, you're going to realize that if you've got a large asset-based fleet who has direct customer freight and they want to make sure that their drivers, whether they're leased on or whatever the arrangement is, they want to make sure that they're protecting who gets the pickup number as well, right? So because if you have a leased on owner operator who's going to get a pickup number, you want to make sure that they're not going to rebroker it out or something along those lines. So, but again, that comes with time. You guys are well, I guess where are you in the process here? And I feel like, Ed, I apologize, we haven't given you a chance to talk yet very much, other than some brief baseball chat. But either one of you guys, feel free. Where are you guys at in like the process here? I know you're already at market, but what does it look like? You guys have already had some customers. What does it look like up to this point? What's the near future looking like?
Yeah, so we spent about a year developing the product. We've had the sandbox live for probably about 3 months now. We've been playing in the sandbox for a while, really making sure that the product was thoroughly vetted before we went to market. But we've had the production version of the product for about a month now. Been doing a ton of demos. The demos have been really fun because of the amount of feedback we're getting, like, features we didn't think about or things that might add value. Those types of feedback loops have been really helpful in us to think about what our map is going to be, right, and where we take the product. So we're really open to those types of conversations. But we've got a few customers onboarded already. We continue to schedule and set up and deliver the demos. And so things are going pretty well thus far.
That's awesome. Good
stuff. I think there's some, to Ed's point about the feedback and the new functionality that we could potentially introduce. I think the next stage of Quickscope, after we kind of address the fraud issue, is kind of some of the stuff that you alluded to at the front end, Ben, is, hey, it's really nice to know that this verified carrier is in position to pick up the load and ready to go. There's confirmation there, right? But the carrier doesn't have to be at the shipper. They could be at a truck stop or around the corner or at a restaurant eating. And because we know the carrier is ready to load, they're within striking distance. They're not waiting at the shipper. So they're technically not eating into, their free hours at the shipper. They're not congesting the shipper with a bunch of trucks waiting. Maybe the shipper has a bunch of products staged, and that's the truck that will no-call, no-show. Now they have to get that out of the way to load the truck that's ready.
Yep.
So what happens in this next iteration of Quickscope if we're able to have the truck wait without eating into their hours, producing, detention or jamming up the shipper? Maybe we can simply have the shipper text the driver and say, you know what, come on in now to door 11. We're ready for you.
You're also saving their on-duty time for their hours of service too. Yeah, that's huge. I didn't even think about that.
There's a lot of things like, again, we're logistics people first. So the fraud issue is a problem that irritates us all personally, because I think people hear that you have a career in brokerage, you're less than. I think sometimes the fraud ruins what we do as brokers. It cheapens what we do as arrangers of transportation. So for us, it was like, let's be the ones to help make this go away. But moving forward, how do we continue to make it better between the chain of custody, between the shipper, the carrier, and the broker, become more efficient to gain more value through this platform? So we're pumped about some of the ideas we're getting from our core customers.
So I want to add this.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll go first. So Mike, you mentioned this a little bit ago, is that you guys are not tech bros. And I like that you pointed out that you're approaching this from the usability of the operator, the 3PL. There are, and like Ben, we have seen so many tech platforms and startups out there that the developers do not have a background in freight. So they build out a tool the way that they think it's supposed to work, because that's how they think. And it's like, you've never worked in this industry before. You've never been on the asset side, or even more importantly, the brokerage side, where this is going to be deployed and used by the operator level. So I'm curious, I know you're not tech bros. You said it twice already, but what has that process been like learning how to work with developers and be like, well, no, you might think that that's how it should be, but it really needs to be this way. Has there been kind of like pushback or just any, bumping of heads on philosophical, how you want it to roll out?
Yeah, it's not my first swing at dealing with developers. I'd worked with quite a few companies during my career days where we were developing unique tools using software engineers from another company.
Okay.
And the biggest hurdle was really a language barrier. Not speaking a different language, literally, but their software language, their code language versus our visionary value proposition language, there was a complete barrier. So learning how to kind of plot things out, spec things out before you move forward was a big part of it. And we've been fortunate to have a lot of people in our corner helping us. I think we've made some friends along the way that have helped us as consultants, or just, this issue is annoying me too, let me direct you here or there, even one of them. But Ed is actually very good at translating business speak to engineering speak. So Ed kind of leads the charge there.
Ed, is your background, do you have a background with that side of the business or what?
No, just a really strong way to take a high level concept and break it down, right, for somebody to understand it and then build them back up to where we need them to be. But all of those memes where the people are drawing on the back of the person in front of them and the developers at the end and they mess up the picture, we did have plenty of that, Nate. I'm not gonna paint a picture of everything was great because it was definitely a learning curve on my end. But I think the project management side of my capabilities is what really led to me figuring it out quick and then leaning on Mike and some of the other people that gave us that advice.
It's funny that, Mike, you called it like a foreign language because the same way that freight brokers don't really understand the technical language is kind of the way that most of our wives don't understand what freight brokerage is, even if they've been married to us for 5 years or longer.
Yeah, exactly.
The reality is when you work in a certain field for so long, you get used to the lingo and the people around you tend to speak the same lingo. And when we try to cross over from one industry to another, it's very different. Like I have friends that work in forwarding and the conversations are, you think there'd be some overlap, but there's a little bit, but it's very, very different. And the same goes with like asset-based companies and brokerage. Obviously, we work together with one another, but there's a lot of things that like freight brokers don't always put themselves in a driver's shoes and think, oh, they have to think about what their break-even cost per mile is when they're considering maintenance, fuel, and everything else that goes into running an asset-based company. So I think it's interesting how you had to navigate that space. And but hey, props to you guys for not being tech bros and actually being brokerage operators and bringing this to the light. So Ben, back to you. Whatever you were going to add in before.
Yeah, the first thing I was going to say was kind of what you guys were talking about, right? And it's like there's just different points of view, right? If you're on the development side, when they're using a tool, they're also not under external pressure, so it seems to work fine, right? And then when you have a conversation like, okay, but like you don't have 6 people screaming at you for the number you've got to get to that's buried 4 tabs behind this, right? And that's the context, right? And to communicate that isn't always the easiest thing, right? Just getting in both ways, right? Like being able to take this concept, break it down into its simplest principles, and then build up from it is absolutely, super effective in being able to work through this. The other thing too that I mean, about this product, right, is Nate and I have been talking about this a lot. Everybody has fraud and just how prevalent it is. And I don't know if everybody realizes how prevalent it is, but it's like everybody I know and talk to runs into this once a month. They either get caught or catch somebody or catch a load and hopefully it doesn't get stolen. And it's like, again, to that point of breaking things down very simply, okay, there's a database at the FMCSA. We know criminals have infiltrated it. So you can't verify to the database that isn't protected or being overlooked or watched or enforced in any way. So at the very least, you need to be able to know very simply that MC I vetted with whatever tool I vetted with is the one that picked up my load, right? because all the fraud happens between those two things. And I love that you guys took a simple approach of let's verify at that point against this, because it really doesn't matter what happens in between. If I know that MC picked that up, then I've at least covered my ass and my shipper's ass, right? And like at the end of the day, the simplest solutions tend to be the most effective. Like I don't need to know everything else in between if I know that's the carrier I want to use. That's the biggest problem, right? In banking, you've got know your customer, you've got IDs, you've got multi-factor authentication and all the stuff we do. But yet in shipping, it's like hope that that's the carrier, right? Until you guys are the only ones addressing it from that side. And Nate and I have been talking about this. I'm like, if there was a sensor or anything to be able to verify that this person that I am booked is the one that is showing up and picking up my freight, it mitigates all of that risk, right?
Yeah, you think about a lot of the other tools. There's other tools out there that can be used proactively to vet carriers based off of, previous inspection history and reports against them. And there's plenty of Excel files go around of reported on MC numbers. But the process to verify on-site identification has been so manual for so long. And every company and every broker chooses to handle it whichever way they see fit. Like hey, the customer, I'm going to call my customer to verify that there's a red Mack truck there or a red Peterbilt with, here's the number of the truck and trailer, to drivers got to take a video of them like walking around, showing the signage on the front of the building and showing their truck. Like that stuff, sure, it can work, but it can be manipulated. And it's a huge ask of other people besides ourselves as brokers. Whereas
asking your customer, right, to do more things to make, the thing we're getting hired to do, right? It's simple. Like they pay us to go hire trucks. They want us to hire the trucks. Those trucks should show up. And now you're asking them to verify the truck you hired. And it just kind of seems asinine and it makes us look incompetent.
And I think a lot of brokers, like they just think, well, I think there's probably some owner operators that think this are brokers, and all we do is go out there and find a truck and make money off of it. But the reality is we're an extension of that shipper's logistics operations and their supply chain. So when they come to us to get them capacity, it's not just any capacity, it's the right capacity at the right time at the right price. And when I say the right capacity, that doesn't just mean the right equipment type. It's going to be quality. It's going to be that they are who they say they are, and they're going to be, that person's going to actually show up. And it's our duty to do that to protect our customer. We shouldn't have to be asking them, hey, I'm going to bug you every time I send a truck in there to verify that this actual truck and trailer showed up. And by the way, can you give me their VIN number too, so I can make sure it's on their COI? Like, no, that's not the way that we operate. Well, it's the way that some people operate, but this is obviously a solution that takes a lot of the manual, mundane process and just makes it like, snap of a finger, very, very quick. And like, so you said it was like 10 seconds. They snap a photo and boom, as long as it doesn't require like a manual correction or second look due to pixelation or something like that.
Exactly.
Do you guys have any like funny stories of someone either in the sandbox like model or actually in production model of someone trying to scam it and try to see how far they can push the system before it detects, no, this is not an authentic photo?
The flashing machine is probably the funniest
that was
one.
Actually a real thing.
Yeah. You'd be surprised though. I mean, you're getting individuals that don't have any lettering on the side of the truck or numbers on the side of the truck, any identifiers. The other thing is you get to see a bit into the condition of the truck, which is cool. But to your point about, we all, in a way, to your original point before the comment about something funny, as brokers, at some point, we all got access to the same trucks. At some point. I don't know if it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but at some point, C.H. Robinson lost their advantage of controlling all the trucks into their load board and being able to go to market and say that we have more capacity than the next person. But we continue to compete on the level of capacity in the eyes of a shipper. Shippers will tell you they don't want you to partake in the entire RFP. They'll ask you how many carriers you have, and you're probably going to say somewhere between 35,000 and 65,000. Depends what the last number on your marketing material is. But we all have the same carriers. When you start to deploy tools like this that allow you to get down to the level of, this is a confirmed driver phone number with a confirmed name and a confirmed truck. He's picking up here and he's going here. That should give you the ability to now make that connection with the carrier, run the carrier, help build the carrier's business, triangulate them across different loads, and hold that data and not share it back to the overarching market, which we're all sharing the same information. So for me, like to your point earlier, I think that's really important to mention, because we really are just over the past 10 years, at some point, we all just started slinging freight. And that wasn't the intent of brokerage. We all don't do it. I'm not suggesting that many companies do it. But when brokers went huge during the pandemic, we all started slinging and posting and taking whatever truck we can. We didn't really build capacity anymore. And I think that tools like this can take us back to that world where as a broker, you can compete. And as a carrier, you can compete with proprietary information, proprietary relationships, capacity, if you will, and go to market with it.
That's interesting.
So I have so many thoughts, and some of which I only don't even want to share on air to what you said. And I'm like, there's like 4 or 5 things I'm like really excited to talk about offline from that point. I'm curious. So like anyone out there, like how do they use it? Like, is it pay per load? Is it like how, for somebody that wants to look at this or evaluate it, like what are the steps? Schedule a demo? Do you have pricing out there? What does that look like for brokers out there?
Do you want to take this one, Ed?
Yeah, we like to lead with a demo and have a conversation with the broker, right? So if they're interested in the product, they've seen some of the marketing, some of the podcasts we've been on, then reach out, right? We'd like to schedule a demo and have a conversation. How do you see this product fitting into your business? What type of freight are you going to use it on? You know, how much volume are you looking at? And then we like to give them the demo of the product, show them the product itself, walk through how, you know, loads flow through the system, what the different statuses are, and show them what the driver sees, right? Make sure that they understand how the product works. And then we can offer free trials. So we've done a bunch of free trials up to a week. And then from there, if you find that the product is useful and it does what it says it does, then we sign you up for, you know, a pricing model, right? And that could be a per load basis, or if you're going to move a ton of volume through the system and it makes sense, then we move into a subscription model. But it's really based on how the customer wants to use it. 2 things comments that I will make that you guys kind of alluded to. One, the vetting process is important, right? The brokers still have to do the vetting process. This doesn't replace vetting. This is a bolt-on to make sure that your vetting process works, and the carrier that you vetted and hired is the carrier that's at the shipper. It's a really important note to make, I think, 1. And 2, the fact that we come from the background of the industry, we help the customer develop the SOPs and build it into their dispatching process, right? So we're willing to hold your hand through, hey, how do I make QuickScope work for me? Where does it fit into my process? Can you help me train some of my track and trace folks to do this and implement it? And we're willing to do that, right? We want to make sure that we provide that high level customer service, and that the QuickScope is as successful in their process as it is for us.
So I want to add in, because I have had the chance to see this firsthand, and it's really cool. The thing that I like is that you guys, it's not like you got to use it on everything. And I think there's so many different brokerage models out there that you might have, let's say, hey, for all of our new reps, we're going to want you to use QuickScope as an extra layer of protection for a certain period of time. Or for everybody, new carriers that we don't have a trusted history with yet, we're going to want to use QuickScope on all their loads for a little bit, right? If you get to a point where you've got a level of trust with a customer, it's not like you're forced to have to use QuickScope if you don't feel you need to. It's kind of like a use it when you find it adding value, but it's not a model where you're forced to use it on everything. It's because this is a system where it's you can go in there and build. I mean, Mike, you could probably correct me or give more detail in that sense. This is your product, but you can tell it which loads you want to. You're going to go in there and say, hey, here's the load information. Boom, right? It's not like it's stealing every bit of data out of your TMS, and you guys are sending it out to everybody.
Yeah, The data collection is super minimal. I mean, really, we're just taking the critical elements, the MC, the DOT, the origin, the destination, tractor trailer number, a few other key ingredients to make sure that you're cross-referencing it accurately. But this product does not live inside your TMS. We can integrate. We're trying to avoid that for a variety of reasons, but it lives outside the TMS. You can use it when you want to use it. We do have recommendations on how to use it. And we're actually going to go through a campaign here in the next few weeks, kind of broadcasting suggested ways to use it. But you could deploy it on specific commodities, specific geographical regions that are more susceptible to versions of fraud or cargo theft. Maybe it's after a carrier is onboarded for your first 10 loads, or anytime there's a new driver phone number, you have to use it. And what's different about this than some of the vetting tools is, as a leader or an executive, you can set those standards on how to use QuickScope and hold the desk level accountable. You can't necessarily prove that they properly vetted by looking into the tools that they have and making sure they checked all the inspections and safer ratings and all that. What you can do is make sure that they put QuickScope on the load if it's a requirement for that commodity or that geographical region or whatever. But yeah, we do not, as people who have purchased these products for a good portion of their careers, I didn't want to have to tell anybody, yeah, it's this much upfront investment and this much for an integration, and all you have to do is buy a year's worth of subscriptions. Like, no, just use it when you need it. If you like it, keep using it. And that's what we're going for here.
That's awesome. Well, I want to pick your guys' brain on something at the tail end here, but is there anything else you want to hit on this topic, or anything relevant to the conversation that we haven't gotten to yet?
I think one thing to mention for anybody that's considering calling us to give us an opportunity to use our product is we do have a runway with new functionality that will be unique to the industry and make a big difference. And if you join us now, hopefully we can make it worth your while when we have new functionality.
Definitely. Blue Book Services is the resource you need if you're transporting fresh produce or lumber. Their online databases contain thousands of companies throughout the produce and lumber industry supply chains. You can easily search their databases to generate new sales leads. Blue Book's credit ratings help you avoid companies with high credit risk, and their team can help resolve disputed loads. To learn more, go to producebluebook.com or lumberbluebook.com and click Join Today. Well, that's awesome. So here's my my unrelated to QuickScope question. Is everyone, I tend to get this question like twice a week from random people I talk to, but where's the freight market going to go in 2024? And when's the market going to flip back to the good old days? What do you think?
Go ahead, Eddie. You can take this one.
I'll give the old tagline of this projection's correct until it isn't, right? Or this forecast is right till it's not, I think is the way it goes. But I mean, I don't know, Nate. Everybody keeps saying back end of this year. I'm not seeing it. I mean, there's got to be something from the demand side, I think, that triggers the need for a market shift. I mean, we know the supply is definitely decreasing, but not at a rapid rate. I saw Jason Miller post today, or speaking directly to that around how the erosion of the supply side isn't as quick as we've seen in the past. And so I think we really need both of the knobs to turn in opposite directions in order for us to see anything. So I don't see it in 24. I might eat these words later. Who knows?
Yeah,
well, it's not.
Good point.
It's not a traditional cycle. I think that's the big argument. Is a lot of people are looking at this like, well, this is how transportation cycles or freight cycles go. It's not that. I mean, the COVID pandemic changed the way people bought stuff. It changed the way that they spent their disposable income. They weren't going out to eat. They weren't driving to work. They had all this extra money. And they were spending it on household goods or food to eat. And then supply chased all the inbound goods, from overseas. Was completely different ordering patterns, completely different products. The way it was manufactured and shipped, completely different. And now you have us kind of settling back into this new reality. I don't think you're going to have this return to, now the next cycle is going to be great. It's going to be really tight and everybody's going to get a ton. I just don't think so. I think we're going to slowly climb back into some sort of equilibrium. That'll be the norm, and then new cycles will begin.
Yeah, I think I had this conversation earlier today with somebody, and Ed, I love that you pointed out that you gotta turn this on both knobs. And for anyone that's new and doesn't really know what we're talking about the supply side and the demand side. So supply being the amount of trucks out there, we call that capacity. There definitely are players exiting the market both on the 3PL and the asset side, but not at a massively rapid pace. I know Dean Croak from DAT puts out a lot of data. You mentioned, was it Jason Miller? Right, he's done some stuff with the folks at DAT in conjunction with them. But the other knob is that demand. You know, how much is there for goods? You know, what is the demand to get those trucks? And Mike, you made a good point that the way we consumed or spent our money in consumption during the peak of COVID is way different than it was prior to that, right? We, like you said, building materials or building a house for that matter, a lot of new constructions for homes and people buying stuff versus going on vacation and things of that nature. So, and I think with you take that coupled with federal interest rates and it's an election year, which that's all those together, I think goes to Ed's prediction of you're not going to see anything drastic in 2024. And I agree. I think you might have a little bit of uptick in rates based off of, you know, slight decrease in capacity. But barring anything out of political realm, interest rates, I mean, it would take a pandemic, right? Like like literally it would take a COVID level event. You know, that could be like a massive war that the U.S. was involved in on a high scale versus, you know, lesser involvement that we have in a couple different conflicts right now. But it takes spending to create products that need to get shipped. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. So just kind of curious. I know you guys have been around the industry for a while. You guys are both pretty intelligent gentlemen, and I wanted to get your take. Ben, do you have anything you want to add in on the market?
I agree with most of the sentiment. I think maybe it's more my hopes than I guess what I expect. But I do think when we see some interest rate cuts, I think some of the companies are going to increase some of their inventory. I think, and again, this massive bullwhip after COVID, you saw massive increase in inventory and then massive fallouts from them. I do think some companies, again, it's more expensive to keep inventory at higher interest rates. Those interest rates come down, I think some of these numbers might change. And, you know, if fuel stays down, maybe you don't see the exits. If fuel goes up, maybe you start seeing trucking companies exit this market a little faster. To Nate's point, like one conflict drives fuel up to where it was a year or so ago. You know what I mean? Like you could start seeing these trucks go out of business a lot quicker. I think the thing that changed that won't change back is we have awareness to our industry that had never existed and will not now go away, right? Everybody sat and listened to and learned about supply chains for years during the pandemic and learned some of the industry's opportunities, right? Massive increases in freight brokerages, massive increases in truckers, right? Like the awareness isn't going to go away. So I think also you were playing with a larger amount of people who either will opt out, but can also opt right back in if the market does pick up. And again, we might see different market cycles moving forward because of that. I think all of it are question marks.
You made a good point. It's kind of unrelated, but everybody learned something about supply chain during the pandemic. So in the past, and I'm guilty of this too before I got into logistics a while back, but you would buy something at the store and you don't know how it got there. It was like a phrase we used in the Army, it was PFM, pure effing magic, right? And then you realize, and we hear all about it during the pandemic early on, that there's these big container ships and there's these ports and there's only so much that can go through the port at one time. And only workers are only allowed to work so many hours without, emergency changes to those policies. So yeah, now people have a little bit more understanding to it, especially those within the industry, and that as time goes on and they move up into leadership roles, they're going to have a higher visibility and just awareness of that. So, but hey, Ben, back to your first point, wishful thinking. Yeah, we all want to go back because, we're a margin-based industry. And as much as we want to see rates go up for profitability, we also hate to see our carriers struggling, right? We're not these bad brokers that hate carriers. Like we want carriers to get paid too. We don't want it to hurt the American consumer just based off of added cost for transportation. But we'll see. We'll see how 2024 pans out and all that good stuff. Back to Quickscope as we wrap up here. We'll make sure we've got a link in our description box or show notes or the description on YouTube for your website and your guys' LinkedIn and everything. But is there any preferred way to reach out or anything you guys want to finish off with?
Yeah, I think, you can go to quickscope.com. It's QUIKSKOPE. And you can contact us through there. You can go on LinkedIn. We put up most of our marketing is done through LinkedIn at the moment, or X now, not Twitter. But the best way to reach us is, email. What is it, info at Quickscope?
Correct.
Yeah, info at quickscope.com. And we'll reach out to you. I mean, it's going to be one of us communicating with you. We're not going to pass you off. We're going to make sure that it works for you. We're there to help you onboard it. So reach out to one of us and we'll get going.
Awesome.
Shameless plug. We've got a video on YouTube as well. It's an explainer video, 1:30, gives you a really good high-level overview of the product. So check that out as well.
Yeah, I'll make sure I get the link from you guys. I'll plug it into the comment or description setting so people can just make sure you scroll down or hit the description on the podcast and hit that link. You guys can get a quick little view of it. But Mike and Ed, we appreciate you having on the show. Definitely going to have to get you on down the road, whether it's talk about Quickscope or just anything else industry related, because you guys are a wealth of knowledge. But thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Ben, any final thoughts?
Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
And until next time, go Bills. That wraps up this episode of Freight 360. Check out the show notes for links to anything that we've referenced on this episode. And make sure to visit us online at freight360.net to see our entire library of episodes, videos, blogs, and more.
And make sure to check us out on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily and weekly tips and content. And if you'd like your question answered on the show, fill out the Contact Us form on our site, and we'll see you next week.